Welcome to Spirit Baby Radio. I am your host, Kelly Meehan, Spirit Baby medium, medical intuitive, and mentor. I believe we are entering into a new psychic structure of our reality that embodies deeper trust, self-love, and fearless integrity. Our New World energy needs us all to make space for it, so we can support consciously conceiving parents, true intuitive pregnancies, and trusting the nature of birthing babies upon our lands with co-creation of heart. I thank you personally for tuning into all things spiritual and earth grounding, conversations that support each other and teach us to be open, free, and thrive within autonomous living and with the spark of wisdom. This is Spirit Baby Radio. Welcome to episode 174, September 15th, 2023, Birthing Babies into World Peace, an anthropological and esoteric view. How do you create world peace from conception into birth? What practical and intuitive insights can be applied? Can peaceful birth and peaceful parenting be attained? How do you find a supportive, peace-aligned community? And so I'm all smiling here. I have a special guest, Zoe. Hi.
Hi, Kelly.
And I always go, of course, like, how does she find these people? And I love just feeling synergy, just connecting with people. And we were connected through another birth professional in the past years. And I was just kind of laughing about how, seeing her posts, and they were just so provoking to me, like where it felt like authentic and pure. And so here we are. And so I'm going to read about Zoe's background. Zoe's trained as a wise woman in healing and spiritual arts. Zoe specializes in the childbearing year, postpartum recovery, and healthy home design. With a background in formal education in anthropology, she has dedicated her life to studying cultures, philosophies, religions, and health practices from all over the world. She has traveled to 5 continents seeking better ways of living. Through her research, she has discovered a variety of cultural traditions and practices that create high levels of health. She is part adventurer, part medicine woman, part philosopher, with a dash of satire and the soul of a poet. I love that final line. I was just laughing about that last night to my husband. I'm like, look at this. I love this. That's so perfect. It's like,
Thanks.
yeah, it's like awesome. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, it's so
Yeah, I'm
wonderful.
excited.
I want to
Thank
hear,
you.
yeah, I know, I want to hear, I love this, The Wise Woman, and your anthropology. I don't know if I've had anyone that was studied in that space on this podcast. Maybe even just sharing, what does that even mean? Those that are tuning in may be like, I'm not really sure. And then how that has molded your work um, into the birthing field or the birthing world, or I know you do a lot of different things. And then the home design.
Yeah, believe it or not, they're all related. Yeah, so anthropology is the study of human behavior, the study of human culture, really. And I've been fascinated with human behavior since as long as I can remember. And I was at first I wasn't sure what I was going to study in college, and then it just had an epiphany. I'm like, oh, anthropology, that's me. That's what I want to do. So that's what I did. And I started in comparative religious art, actually. That was my original path of study. And then I went into the birth world shortly after that. Well, about 6 years after college. I became obsessed with the birth world, and I started to research how different cultures were birthing their babies. And of course, how we were birthing our babies. I didn't have a family yet, but I was married, and we knew that we wanted to start a family. So I just really started researching on my own, my options, and I didn't like what I was seeing going on in the hospitals here, if I'm honest. It looked like women and children were being abused, and I wanted to do something about it. I didn't know what to do about it. And I realized that what I have to do is just create better ways and start teaching those better ways to women. So just informing women of their options. And so that's what I started to do. And the anthropology of birth is really just, how we're birthing. That's it. That's all it means. It's how different cultures are birthing. So, yeah.
I really, yeah, it's I love that you bring this up because it makes me kind of think and reflect for a moment, like how different birth is in different parts of the world, and that you're
Yeah.
able to see that and then come to one space in your community and then bring it forward. And I call myself a birth advocate many years ago, seeing I wasn't going into the hospitals, but I was dealing with the aftermath of women, dealing with feeling traumatized in so many different ways and so many different experiences. And I feel like I don't even want to say it's a work in progress. I almost roll my eyes here because I feel like there's more people have to still do better. I feel like I'm like, it's very frustrating to me, and I know things have improved and have kind of evolved a little bit, but
Yeah.
such a powerful place to work in and be a part of and see. And I even wonder, how do you not get frustrated and pissed off? Or maybe you do.
Well, so I was doing a lot of doula work, which is a birth assistant basically. We're at the other end, we're the person who's nurturing and comforting a birthing woman. And all of the births that I attended were in the hospital. And as a doula, it's your job to support whatever the woman's decision is. It's not your job to persuade her in any way, shape, or form. So, whatever her choices are, you fully support that. And so here I was in the hospital setting, helping birthing women. And it was so painful for me. It would take me about 3 days to recover. I would go home and cry. Um, I just couldn't handle it. So I do not do birth doula work anymore unless there's a special request from someone I know personally. I will, but yeah, it was very, very hard for me. Very hard. So yeah,
And
but
what
I
about
know
home births? Do you do home births or unassisted
I
births?
I will do that if requested. But like I said, I've only done hospital births.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. But my
Mm.
own birth of my own child was at home.
Oh, nice.
And that was well, I had a good and challenging experience, but yeah, it was at home, and I'm very, very happy we went that path, chose that direction to do. Yeah.
I feel like you doulaed yourself, right?
I had an amazing doula at
Oh,
at
nice.
my birth.
Okay.
Yeah. I had a great midwife, very competent midwife, and actually two competent midwives and amazing doula. So I was really lucky. But
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, it's what an experience. Gosh, I can't imagine having to see what you saw and then you're just like taking days to really recoup through that energy. And just reminds me of where like I said earlier, it's like, can we do better? Is it better? I tend to keep my energy away from that space and just hopefully empower the women
Yeah.
to find their voice, especially now in the past 3 years. It's like, where's your voice? What about consent? Like, but it is a fighting. I feel like it's about, I hate to use the word fighting, but I feel like that's what it has to be. It's like women have to step up, right? And not just one woman, but many to go, this is the birth vision I have, or this is the connection I have, and how to honor it instead of making it like it's, a traumatic, scary experience that like birth somehow is this medical emergency that's steeped in our subconscious, I feel like, right?
Well, birth is a rite of passage. It's a rite of passage for many people, actually. It's the woman, it's the mother's rite of passage, it's the child's, birth into this world. But also it's the rite of passage for a family many times, right? If daddy's there and then their grandma and grandpas are being born that day as well, many times. So yeah, it's a rite of passage, which I believe should be a sacred experience. Um, and only a medical experience if needed. I mean, I'm grateful every day for Western emergency medicine. It saves lives. It has saved my life. So I'm not, knocking what we have because it's great and it's needed. However, um, it's I don't believe it is the best option for a normal healthy birth experience.
I love this word. This is really nice. The like a rite of passage of birth. Like that, when you said that, it just felt so happy, like joy. Like I do feel like I was rebirthed with my firstborn, even though I had a very traumatic experience. I had people know this in my podcast. I had a home birth hospital
Hmm.
transfer where they did not like that, let's just say. So they treat you differently.
I believe you.
So yeah.
Yes.
And
Yes, they do.
so
Yep.
and so even before after, it was just a very hard healing journey because of a lot that happened. And yet it pushed me into the work. And then I did have my second at home completion, and it was such a different experience.
Oh,
And
I'm
I
happy to
wasn't
hear that.
holding him. Yeah, I wasn't holding him to being born, to heal me or something, but he did. It
Oh,
just did. But that rite of passage, I love that. I really love that. And I wish that in our hearts we would share that more with women that are coming into pregnancy instead of going, okay, running to the doctor or, and this is my own judgment. I just feel like there's too much intervention. And I'm like, what is in this? I mean, and I get some intervention is important, but there's too much. Let's just get real. There, it's just like letting nature and natural connections. But again, I know there's fear and there's a lot of what people are doing, quote unquote, normal. That's the normal behavior. But
sure, sure. Well, normal is what your body does instinctually. So,
mm,
women in comas give birth. Okay. You don't have to think a baby out. You don't have to push a baby out. Your body will birth your baby on its own. It's not a thing that has to be thought or intervened in at all.
oh my gosh, I love you even more now that you just said that. That is an amazing quote. I'm going to quote. This is Zoe. Like, that is a really good point. Like, you're in a coma. Yeah. Yeah. Your
uh,
body's going to,
your
how
body,
power. Yeah.
it's actually the baby that injects a hormone into the mother's
Mm.
blood system that that signals the body to start birth. So this is all in our genetics. It's an
Yeah.
instinctual thing, like the grasp of a baby's hand. It's just something a woman's body has in it. It's in our DNA.
I
So
love,
so
yeah.
yeah, to think that we have to put our bodies and our lives into the hands of another to be saved or comforted, yes, and supported, absolutely. Um, medicated and picked and drugged and cut, no, not necessarily. Only if there's a medical emergency.
Yeah. I really feel like in our times now, especially with social media, we get to see really strong opinions and things and facts, but I really love that I'm seeing, and maybe it's the people I'm following, where they're really speaking up really strongly, saying, these interventions that have become, the thing that people do, like to question it and get attacked for it. I'm like, huh, that's interesting. We're getting attacked for things because everybody feels like, they can have an opinion, right? But at the same time, I'm like, no, I want to speak up and say, I'm not telling everyone to go free birth or anything, but
No,
what
absolutely
if
not.
we what if
Yeah.
we view birth in that way? Almost like go to that side first,
I,
and then pull back to does that make sense how I'm saying that?
I, yeah, it does. It does. Yeah, for me, obviously, I am opinionated, but my opinions are based on years of research. If I'm honest, I'm not just pulling this out of the sky. Um, yeah, but again, going back to just the sacredness of life itself, and there are rites of passage in all human beings. I mean, we have birth, we have, um, menarche for women, which also boys go through this, coming of age, marriage, of course. So, and then menopause for women is also a whole nother stage of reality because your hormonal system changes and your body is a different body. It works in a different way. You feel a different way. And then of course death, and death is not just for the person, it's for your whole family and everyone you leave behind. So we're experiencing these are markers of life that our ancestors used to pay attention to. And of course, there are many people still pay attention to these markers. But I find that in popular American modern culture, they've gone to the wayside in lieu of um, I don't want to say science or really badmouth science, because I am a scientist. I'm a social scientist. So, um, but there's almost, I call it the machine culture.
Mm.
And machine culture is actually the enemy of human culture. It's the
Mm.
opposite. It's the opposite of nature. It's not always the enemy, because I love technology. I'm not gonna fully knock that either. Um, but again, it's a balance. You wanna use the stuff that improves our lives. It's great. I love computers. I love phones. All that fun stuff.
Mm.
I love driving around and being able to go where I need to go quickly. That's great. Um, but when you start to incorporate a machine into your daily life, it can disconnect you if you don't continuously come back to the rhythms of nature.
Yeah, I completely agree on that one. And so
Yeah.
much to connect with in nature. And even as you were saying that, I was thinking, even how science, is always changing, right? I mean, it is always changing, like all the time. And I remember there was a time many, many, oh my gosh, 50 years ago when my husband was born. He, his mom got an X-ray. Like, who gets X-rays and pregnancy? But it's like, oh, you just do that, like,
Right.
okay, um, yeah,
Right.
oopsie, um,
They used to drug women too while they were
yes,
birthing. They would gas them.
yeah.
So they would totally knock out birthing women and then pull the baby out with forceps, and often scarring the baby, and just, yeah.
And then
I could
wondering why that baby becomes an unproductive, mentally ill adult, really, or addict or something, right? I mean, that's not everybody, but
I don't have research on that. I'm not sure that I'm really not sure of all the results. I can say that
yeah.
there are some practices that are very negative
Mm,
for the human. For example, just taking a child away from its mother at
mm,
birth,
mhm.
which was the practice for many, many, many years.
Deep breaths.
Right.
Because no, because that happened to my mom with my brother.
Yeah, I was
And
taken away. I mean,
yeah,
my brother was taken away. That was normal. That was, for whatever reason, that was normal.
yeah. And it was hard for her because she already had trauma from childhood and she was diagnosed as mental illness too. So I was like,
Mm.
and then she actually told me she thought he died. So she was grieving for days. And they said, oh, they just took him away because he wasn't doing well. And that's just what they did in that year. And then
Wow.
I'm not going to lie, and they both passed away rather quite quickly next to each other, actually.
Oh.
Had the most difficult relationship their whole life, really, especially from after teenage years. But it was
Mm.
really, I don't know, it was like she loved him so much and wanted this connection. And yet, it was just complicated for them in their storyline. And so I'm sure not just his birth really made that impact, but her own trauma, not knowing how to be fully present. And
Mhm.
yeah, it's really like, so I have this mission of like, healing, our foundations the best we can because we just don't, we're walking around as adults with I call the inner infant already present. We don't have to go find our inner infant. It's like present through interactions of relationships and connections with people. But it's something, yeah, with just seeing that relationship and how they even passed away, like by the way, very randomly. Like there was no coincidence between their passings. Like, but I feel like there's some other unknown deep spiritual journey in that because I know his mother wound was huge, and then he was completely estranged from her, and then he passes from really a broken heart. And
Hmm.
not because he loved my mom, he just despised her and hated her actually on a very, outward level, but deep inside I was like, "Oh, this is really deep." But,
Wow.
again, a lot of probably unknown parts to the story, just my own observation of being the outside and just kind of always sitting with that, like just in curiosity of like, oh, look at this journey. It's just fascinating because, it's we can't go back and erase time. It just is what it is, really.
Right. Wow. That's
And
great that you ponder that, actually, and just see that connection.
yeah. And again, I'm not
Yeah.
trying to solve it because that would be exhausting. You know, and I have, of course, I have a lot of feelings for it. There's a lot of grief and a lot of love and a lot of like, it's hard to live in this world and then be a baby being and then, you know, what's the connection with your mom and your father? Or maybe there's no mother, maybe there's no father, but we forge through. I feel like people, I think, are quite strong and powerful. We can have layers of mini and large traumas and still evolve through it. Like I have a lot of faith in humanity, like in that sense that we all have lived experiences. And so I want to go into, I love this on your website, and we kind of talked about that. You have, you know, talking about world peace. I love this, like world peace, peaceful everything, peaceful birth. And you have these 5 steps. I actually have them listed. I don't know if you want me to read them out, but I wanted to like, maybe I'll read them
Sure.
out. Yeah, I want to read them out. The 5 steps to world peace. One is obtaining inner peace. Two is peaceful birthing. Three is peaceful parenting. Four is holistic, applicable education. And five is living as a community. Can you maybe break a little parts of these down and help us get to, yeah, what is this building, this world peace connection?
So this is really coming from an anthropological perspective and started with a famous debate called nurture versus nature. And for those of you who haven't heard about this, it's scientists were debating whether who we become as adults is based on our genetics or our conditioning, meaning, you know, how we're raised. And after lots of research, they found out that both are actually there. It's really a 50-50. So yes, your genetics definitely have something to say about who you're going to become. But um, how you're raised is also really important. So the only one that we can manipulate is the nurturing part,
Mm,
right? So knowing that, um, my first question is, well, why aren't we using this to our advantage? You know, why aren't we um, nurturing and conditioning to get a certain outcome? So, you know, I started to research, you know, what would that look like? And really, it would have to be consistent and congruent. So, what I mean is, it really does have to start in the womb, for starters. And it has to not just start in the womb, but in a womb of a person who has obtained inner peace. And so, what does that even mean? You know, what is because I'm going to tell you right now, I don't live every moment of my life in a state of inner peace. Okay. I'm not going to pretend that I do. Um, but I can get there and I do strive for that. And honestly, I just think if you're practicing and if you have that intention, that's a good start. Just keep practicing, keep trying that, keep having that as a goal. Learn techniques to get yourself to that state of inner peace. And in the book, I talk about just different ways you can do that. You know, and I believe that really, um, I believe in meditation as a really useful tool. I believe in learning the art of forgiveness, both of yourself and anyone you feel that you need to forgive. I think that's very important to lift that heaviness off of your body, you know, off of your psychology, whatever. Um, so yeah, getting to a state of inner peace, and then, you know, and having a sacred relationship. I, you know, I do like the idea of planning a birth, you know, inviting a child into your life even before you've conceived. Um, of course, accidents happen and so be it. That's part of life. Um, and there's no reason to like be judgy or have any judgment about that whatsoever. However, if you're able to invite a child into your life, it just
mm,
comes in with a wanted spirit from the very, very beginning. And then you know, there's lots of research about how um, the consciousness of the mother goes directly into her child. Okay. Um, so knowing that, it's really important to nurture pregnant women because we want to keep mamas happy. So they're passing on this happy love, this happiness their baby in utero. So I do talk about that as part 2, how we're birthed. Starting with the in pregnancy, I talk about different ways to keep mama happy. And I really feel that's crucial. And then, of course, how we're birthed is really important. That's what we've been talking about. I believe in gentle birth practices. Again, if they can be used, great. If not, so be it as well. You can't predict birth. That's what any obstetrician will tell you, any midwife will tell you. You can't plan that much. You can make an outline, you can have wishes and desires, and then you have to let it happen, and that's all fine too. But there's many different things that we can do to ease the baby's experience, ease mama's experience. So I talk about many different things, and I can always elaborate on any of those if you want. But then, so as I said, we're doing consistent, congruent conditioning. We started with inner peace. Then we're talking about having a good relationship, inviting the child into your life, pampering mama, having a gentle birth experience. The next step, of course, is your parenting journey. And really, I'm the first person who's going to tell you not to tell people how to parent their children. I think that's really important because everyone has different parenting styles. So what I think is important really is equipping parents with tools to learn how to communicate. That's really, if you just master one thing in parenting, it's learning how to communicate with your children. So I do have some resources to help parents in that journey. Of course, I also talk about how your home is designed. That's part of parenting for me, because this is especially important for women. In my research, I found it's not that important for men, but it's really important for women to have what I call like a nest, their home sanctuary that feels safe, that feels beautiful, and there are things you can do to create a nurturing environment for you and your family. So that's also part of peace and health. So if you keep mama happy, everyone else is happy. It's just that I don't care what anyone says. That's kind of the law of the universe of families. Keeping mom happy, because moms are nurturers by nature, and we're going to take care of you. We're going to take care of everyone, but we have to have our needs met first.
It's a saying that I've heard, that the mom is the sun and all the planets revolve,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
people, the family, the kids overall revolve around the sun, right? I thought that
yeah,
was cute.
right. So yeah, there are just a few different parenting techniques that people can try. So I really stress the home sanctuary and communication as 2 really significant tools. So the hardest next part would be education. And we did talk about that a little bit earlier, just how you've chosen to homeschool. And I had very limited choices myself with education for my son. But I talk about applicable education. I think that should be like, if I had my way and I was going to go reform education in the public schools, in the public sector, the first thing I would do is make everything applicable education. And what I mean by that is, if you want to teach a child algebra, teach it how to build a house. If you want to teach geometry,
Mm.
teach them how to sail. If you want to teach, public speaking or English, have them do theater. There are really fun and amazing and holistic ways to teach concepts and ideas that isn't just sitting at a desk all day and reading a book, because that's not learning through doing. So we have to apply the knowledge. So that's what I mean by applicable education. Sure, we can read books, we can read our textbooks, but then you have to go do it. and you have to do it right away. You're not going to wait until you're an adult to do all these
Mm.
things. Children can learn right now and just building skills over the years. But you know, as far as the congruent part goes, the other part of this, as far as the peace goes, so if you come from a home that is a loving, supportive environment, and you're taught to behave in the world in a certain way. I do talk about etiquette in the book. Etiquette is just, having respect for everyone around you and respect for yourself. That's really all it means. But then you go out into the world, and the child's first experience out in the world is usually with, at school, getting socialized. And it's not the same as it is at home. It not only is it not the same, it's so different. You might be getting healthy food at home. You're not getting healthy food in a public school. You're in a classroom with sometimes 30 plus other children. So you're not getting a lot of individual attention. And often you're sitting for hours, in listening mode. I don't want to say all schools are like this. They are getting better too. Depends where you are, but it's still it's still pretty much like that. And, just the messages are different. The messages actually contradict what could be happening at a peaceful home. So congruency there is really important. And again, this is going to take time. This is going to take education and people wanting this change in their life. And what I've noticed from human behavior is that people fear change. And there are only really two things that will help people change versus just really wanting it yourself, which is a rare quality, to be honest, to actually want to evolve and grow on your own without physical suffering or monetary incentive. Those are the two things that help people change. So it's really going to have to be education and talking about it, like just us talking about it right now. If one person hears this and gets inspired, great. That's one more person we have to push the message forward, But yeah, so applicable education. And then step 5 is living as a community. And I don't know if you've read the Blue Zones or heard about the Blue Zone concept.
No.
Have you read this book? It's one of my favorite books. As an anthropologist, I love it. I love this book. The name of the author is escaping me right now. It's Dan shucks something. I can look it up. But this is a guy from he worked for National Geographic for many years, and he wanted to study the places in the world where people live the longest. So he went to places where people they have the most centenarians, the people who live to 100 or longer. And he was wondering why, what are these people doing that, they have a high population of these older folks. So he found 9 things that they all had in common. And the one that fascinated me the most was that they're all social. They're very social people. So I really believe that living as a community is just so important. And the only reason I mention it, I mean, some people might say, well, we're all living as a community, but are we, Because in modern times, I'm just going to use New York City as an example because it's the best example I can think of. You don't have to leave your house ever. You can get everything delivered to you. You can have all your groceries delivered. You can have laundry done. You can have people make photocopies just anything you can think of, you can have delivered. And now that we have internet, you can interact with people through the computer, right? So that's a life of isolation and solitude. And you can still survive. Now, is it a healthy existence? I don't know. I'm going to go with no. But I understand some people love solitude. However, according to the Blue Zones, it's it's not the healthiest.
Mm.
And humans are social by nature. We want to interact. We want to be with other people. So living at it as a community is, I think, a way to just feel good, be healthy, and get support and offer support. And that makes you feel happy to be alive.
Mm.
That's part of the joy of life is that energy, that vibe. I call it the vibe, community vibe.
I'm definitely feeling these 5 steps. I really wanted to hear you go through everything. And I love this, like, yeah, obtaining inner peace. I like it's obtaining. There's no pressure.
Yeah.
When you were speaking about that, it made me think about, for me, like nervous system work is
Mm,
what actually has helped me obtain that inner peace to really for me more than anything was I never realized how unsafe I was in my body. I just
mm.
walked around like scared of all the energies that I felt
Wow.
and had a very short window of time between feeling like I'm out in the world and I can't do big things. It just was too much. And when became more grounded and healed a lot of different parts of myself, through a lot of just listening, embodiment, and with help and on my own. But I love it now because every day you're with your body is completely different. I'm not
Mm,
like, okay, we're gonna do, and I'm not like poo-pooing like mantras and meditations and vision, whatever. But I feel like when we're doing embodiment work, you just don't know. Like you wake up and your body's in a different space. But I feel like in our bodies, there's emotional energy, physical energy, and just to be with it without trying to change it has been so powerful. It's to me, it's almost a level of love and forgiveness too. It's like, oh,
mm-hmm.
I have an ache or pain. If I have an ache or pain, does it need stretching? Does it need movement? Or maybe I just need to place my hand on my body and just be with myself. And that to me is like, getting that inner peace. And I'm not going to say I had that when I was in pregnancy. I wish I did, but I just couldn't get there. It felt like a lot for me to be pregnant. But I also felt like I didn't have community, which was a big part of it. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't have anybody that's probably why I did go into postpartum depression. I was like, yeah, there's nobody to take care of me, and I didn't
Oh,
know how to get that. And so it was really having my child, the rebirth into very just deep dark fears and just no support. And it was like, but I did the best I could to move forward and build energy. But and then the peaceful birthing with my first, it wasn't very peaceful, but the second it
right.
was, and it was like, it was fine because I could see where I was coming from in my life. So I was like,
Yeah.
okay, it makes sense. It's not like, but I feel like we're all doing the best that we can with what we have. But I love that word, even
Yeah.
just if you're in conception or pregnancy, like just get the word peaceful, like peaceful birthing, peaceful pregnancy, and how important that is. Like, I feel like we need to really worship pregnant women. Like, I see pregnant women, I just smile because I'm like, my gosh, they're creating and holding beautiful life. I'm opening the door for them. And if I'm seeing them struggle, I may say something actually. If somebody's like, I'm at the farmer's market and someone's sweating, or I'm just like, make sure you drink water, like just a little, or like I feel like I'm moving out of the way. I'm very conscious of pregnant women that are in my space. And because I know
Mm-hmm.
how hard it is. And I know that we all need to like be conscientious of our women that are birthing life.
Yeah.
And of course the parenting part. I love how you said that communication, right? It's like, because you're right, parenting styles, there's so many kinds, right? And it's like
Yeah.
people get really,
Yeah. Well, my favorite book, I'll put that
yeah,
out there for any parents listening.
yeah.
And I'm probably gonna not remember the exact title, but it's something like How to Talk So Kids Will Listen and Listen So Kids Will Talk.
Mm,
And for me,
okay.
this book was just it was great. It changed everything for me. Um, I think I think it's a woman who wrote this. Yeah, I'm terrible with names. So the older I get, I have, please forgive. Um, but yeah, she just, it's great. It's just a great, she gives you really good techniques to try. And I tried them and for me, they worked.
Yeah.
They really
I
did.
just wrote that down because I'm curious because two boys and my older one's a handful at times. There's a lot
Yeah,
happening. And so, but I want to do the best I can. Of course, I'm one of those parents that don't want to
sure.
do it the way my parents like raised me at all. Like I
Yeah,
want to be 100% different, like most every part of that.
yeah,
And so, communication, I love that because I talk to a lot of my friends who are parents and they have challenges and things, and we all try to like brainstorm together. Well, what do you think? I love that about the mom community. It's like they're not like saying you're bad, you shouldn't do that. They're just saying, oh my gosh, I know
hmm
it's hard for you.
hmm
What about if you try this? Like, especially with anger. Like, I remember there were times when I was nursing, changing diaper, and then getting angry that I'm screaming. And I'm a very quiet, calm person. And I'm like, do I have to hide that I have anger and that I screamed and lost my shit?
right.
With my loving parent community, no, they're like, yeah, I feel you.
Yeah,
That's, you have forgiveness, repair. But then it's like, then I'm like trying to, improve it. Like, what could I
yeah,
do that's different next time? And
sure. And that's part of parenting, and nobody knows how to parent until you
yeah,
and you just gotta work through it.
I
And
like that. Nobody
you,
knows how to that's true.
I mean, I read somewhere, and I'm trying to remember. I think parenting wasn't even a word
Oh
until
yeah, right?
like the 70s or something,
I
or
think I
70s
heard
or
that
80s.
too recently.
Yeah, I might. You know what? I posted it on Facebook. I think
Maybe
you
it was
maybe you
you I
saw
read
it.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah, because I had to think about
yeah.
that. I was like, oh, I had no idea.
I know. And and it when you think about it, so I'm Gen X, so I'm older already, and I don't remember seeing my parents at all, except for dinner at dinner
Yeah,
time.
we're the
And
same generation.
I saw them on the weekends, they saw them on the weekends. We did stuff as a family for sure. Um, but I felt like they weren't really around much, and they
Mm,
weren't really parenting. like I don't know, I feel like when I had children, I was like totally all in. I'm like,
yeah.
how can I make, the life of my child amazing? So I researched this and that. I don't think my parents read any books on how to, do this or that. It's a new
Maybe,
concept.
yeah. I think there were some parenting books. Was it Dr. Spock or something?
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know.
exactly. They
It
had
is
Dr.
like
Spock.
they had just
Yeah.
one book everybody had to read, but it's
Yep.
true. I grew up
Yep.
in a time where I remember my mom being around a lot. My dad worked like he was just working, working, working. He was like I remember jumping into his arms in the evening and there were the weekends if he wasn't working.
Yeah.
Vacations. I said, "Vacation, Dad."
Yeah.
And then I remember, yeah, being free to just kind of you go across the street at 6 years old, run around the neighborhood. 6 years
Yep.
old. I wouldn't let my 6-year-old do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But make
Totally.
sure you're home by the evening. The
Right.
sun goes down.
Oh
There's
yeah,
no phones. There's
we
no
were yeah, we were set free. We were set free like the
and hope we
cattle or
come
whatever.
back.
Yeah. Yep. It was a
Or
different
I'd hear a
time.
scream down the road to me and my older brother. It'd be like, Kelly, Cap, come back.
I know. That's so
Oh, that
funny.
must be time to go home. But
Right.
I love that. I think that we should maybe, yeah, that would be great to just eliminate the word parenting. Just being with our children, just yeah. What do other countries call it? Do they call it parenting? I don't
That's a
know.
good question. I
Yeah,
really don't know, but
that'd be curious though. But
yeah,
and the
it is
education,
interesting.
I like loved how you said that from your perspective because I never really thought of it that way. It's very Waldorf too. It's like you're learning, you're not just, oh gosh, the books and the sitting and the writing, and it's like for 8 hours a day maybe, and then maybe a few of those times you're just walking in between places or just sitting and listening. But what if you're a kid that's a bad listener like I was? I
Yeah.
literally, it set me up for failure. I was the learning, disabled kid all through like school because I couldn't learn the way they wanted me to learn. And
Yeah. Different styles of
now it's
learning.
different though. I feel like they're really like a lot of the schools. I'm in the city, so I think it's more the private schools that, people are paying money, right? Or
Hmm
charter.
hmm
But the public school system, it's still, yeah, it's not good. Over here, I hear things and from, the mouths of parents and I just take deep breaths for them because I'm like, oh boy, because you don't know. It's like you're putting your child and you don't see them all day, so you don't know what's happening, right? until
Yeah.
they share it. And children sometimes are scared even, but I love what you said about let's learn math, but it's not about opening the book. It's like you said, like, let's build the structure. Let's look at the length. And I'm like, that feels so dreamy and right. But my sadness around this, I don't think it's really happening that way.
Not at all. No.
Yeah.
No. So yeah, I definitely would like to talk more about it. It's just, I feel like sometimes I'm one person who has this big vision of how to, reform these different institutions. And sometimes I don't even know the first step to be beyond writing about it, talking about it, teaching classes. Um, you know, yeah,
It's
we're
the
we're
I'm not saying that word, implementation. What's that word? Yeah,
implementation.
like
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
doing it, right? It's like
yeah, right.
here's the work, or here's the foundation. Let me guide you. Let's actually do it and see what happens. I'm very experiential. I'm all about let's
Hmm.
do it and see what happens. It may not work. It may look this way, but that's like my level of consciousness and thought process. Like I go from one creative idea to another. It may work, it may not, but for me, I'm like, oh, at least I tried it. Whereas
Sure.
no,
Yeah.
other people will sit far back in their dreams and go, they try to figure out the whole story in their head. And I'm like, but if we can't just go in it and see if we can just screw it up a little or make it really amazing. I feel like I'm doing that with homeschooling.
Yeah.
Because I realized my learning style is going to influence their learning style, which is great because my husband, I call him the homeschool dad. So we have different ways of learning because he came from medical doctor backgrounds. They're all doctors, and he has this very mathematical and science mind, and I am not like that at all, and I don't want to be actually. I'm
Mhm.
like working with my own talents, I would say. And I'm like the artist intuitive kid. That's just me. And maybe I'm a little bit of both, but I'm not going to lie. I'm more extreme to the one creative, intuitive side. And so what do is I do things kinesthetically with my kids, like, hey, and visually, I use the senses to learn. So I'm like, oh, we're going to play with clay, or we're going to taste something and watch this movie. Like we did this really great what was it called? My teacher, is it called My Teacher the Octopus or something?
Oh yeah.
Is
I
that the
think
title? Yeah. Oh
I think
my
so.
gosh. It was
Love
there.
that movie. Love.
I
Love,
like
love.
cried in the middle of it.
I did too.
Yeah.
I
I mean, it's
totally bawled. Yeah.
beautiful. And just the visual was like with the seaweed and his passion and love. And I think it's great that we see male energy showing that passion and love. And he had
Hmm.
no idea. He was just being like just in the moment with learning and connecting. And I love that. And so in this, we decided I had this idea. My little one was gonna he made play with clay as we're watching this. So he made a little octopus and did
Hmm.
this. And then we talked about the movie, we talked about the documentary, and then I had them, this is me, is I had them eating seaweed, something called they're like little kelp balls.
Uh-huh.
We did some other kind of things from the ocean that we ate because I
Yeah.
wanted them to have they're seeing it, they're using their hands and they're tasting something instead of going, okay, we watched the movie, let's write a paper, which he was too little
Right.
anyways, but and my older one
Right.
has hard time with that. So it's like, well, let's story tell, let's talk about the story and what can we do really for me. And it's been like, what is your learning style? And how can we,
Hmm.
you're gonna have to challenge yourself with things outside of your learning style, but at least you're trying it. And I'm
Yeah.
not saying you have to do it. And that's the thing that hurt me. I think it's like, no, you have to do this test, Kelly. You have to learn it this way. But I was like, but I really can't learn it that way. But I was told, no, you have to do it anyways. And so, but
Right.
I never learned anything like that. I went, oh, what I heard was, you want me to memorize it to get you the right answer, but I know nothing about the information. That's what I
Right.
heard. And you know what? That's what I did because that's the way but it's kind of sad when I think about it because I'm like, my husband will ask me about things like, didn't you learn this or that? And I said, no, I like memorized everything. I said, I had a lot of anxiety too. So when you're in anxiety with school and you kind of freeze and you don't take in information the same way with,
That's
you
true.
know, and
Hmm.
so yeah, I'm the kinesthetic, visual
Yeah.
learner in the house. And so, yeah, it's interesting because that's, yeah. And I don't feel like I'm still learning. Like I'm like, gosh, I hope I'm doing it good enough for the kids, or what do, yeah, what does it look like next? And so
Hmm. I think that's great. I yeah. It's so you're doing applicable learning, it sounds like.
I
I
hope
love
so.
that. I love that you watched the octopus my octopus
Yeah,
teacher had the
it's so good.
seaweed, and that sounds like a fun class. I'd like to be in it.
I know, right? Thank you. Because I was
Yeah.
like, it was just in the moment. And then we do like sword making and we're going to do fencing. We talked about blacksmithing things. And I like that,
Hmm.
like what you said too. And I never thought of it that way because I'm sure, like a lot of my generation, we grew up like no one told me how to meditate or balance a checkbook or like do real life skills.
Life skills. Yeah. Yeah.
I had no, and it really reflected in my life. Like all of a sudden I had this credit card debt and all like nobody was teaching how the
Nobody
electricity
tells you
works.
any of that. Also, our generation grew up quite comfortable, really. And
Yeah.
we, as we became adults, we were like, we wanted to continue to be that comfortable. The
Mm,
only way to do that as a young adult with a young adult's salary was to buy things on a credit card.
yeah.
And so we got sucked in just like that was easy. They got us like easy. It was a
Yeah,
no
it's
brainer.
absolutely true. Because then I'm thinking, I even said when we started our curriculums, we have different curriculums, and I said I wanted kids to do energy, like kind of meditative work, like in a kid's level, not like anything, so like singing bowls and like how do we feel in our bodies and like going on nature things a lot and just being really present. And then like how do we then build skill to be a really honest, good, integral human in the world? Like I realized like, oh my gosh, yeah, I didn't learn like, I had to figure out the hard way with the credit card and then like, oh, I had to pay for my own electricity now. Maybe I shouldn't leave the lights on. I got to buy my own
Right.
food. What am I, it's like, and oh man, there was a lot of mistakes and a lot of impoverished moments, right? Mom, Dad,
Yeah.
can you send me money? Like, and then like, okay, but I was like, yeah, this feels so important. I don't know if they're teaching that a lot in school now, but the life skills, right? It's like,
Mhm. Yeah.
again, to be a contributing human for the future.
Right. Yeah. Well, I have hashed out an entire education reform plan.
Wow. Love
I
it.
I have it all written down, and whoever wants to adopt it can have it.
That
I
sounds
give it
amazing.
I give it to humanity. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's uh just yeah, like a very balanced and fun. I think when you have fun, when you learn, you remember
Hmm.
it. You just do. It becomes part of your muscle memory right away. It goes into your cells. I
Yeah, fun
really
and
think,
learning. Can they go
mhm,
together? Like I honestly, my
yeah,
history was like, nope.
right. For
And then
you,
I'm like,
right.
yeah, but it
But
can be. I think we need to definitely say that, like, yeah, it's
I
fun to
think as
learn.
an
Yeah.
adult, you've learned things that you're interested in, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
There
So
you go. Yeah.
so that's kind of the Montessori
Yeah.
approach, is letting kids like guide you to what they're interested in, right? I didn't my that would have been terrible for my son because he wasn't interested in anything. He would have
Oh,
sat
I
in a
know. That's
he would
hard.
have sat in a corner and stared at the wall or something.
So
So
you're like, here, how
um
about this? How about that? How about this?
right. So you really just have to know your child too. But with
Yeah.
applicable education, it's not about forcing anything on a child.
Yeah.
It's just, I think, exposing children and
Mm.
and making it fun.
It's so interesting what we did recently because we're coming into homeschool time through our charter, and I took a butcher paper on the counter, rolled it out because again I know it's visual kinesthetic. I threw markers and pens, and the whole family we had to write what we want to do. I called this semester, so September to December, and of course, I drew all the pictures and I'm like art and music and nature. And it's like, what do you want to learn? Like, let's talk about what we want to learn. Like, I want to make
Mhm.
what we want to learn fun, even not just like dictating or making the list, but let's like write all these colors on this butcher paper. And my little one he's just new to school. I feel like he's going to be 7 and is just really coming into learning. And he said he liked math, and I go, let's all write our favorite number, like as a family, like what's your favorite number? Someone's got to have a favorite number somewhere. So we're just
Yeah.
all writing numbers. And so to me, I was like, this feels good for the start of, let's like homeschooling world is different because you're literally schooling all the time, kind of, but we kind of took a little break in the summer, but I want to like reinvent it and re-energize it to make it, yeah, to make it fun. And I know there's going to be times where maybe we don't feel like doing as much, but that's the beauty of homeschooling.
Yeah.
There's, let's say we had a late night with the stars and we're tired. I'm not going to be like, okay, we have to, like, okay, well, just let's see what comes up. But I want to kind of shift into the last one. I mean, yeah, living with community, the tribe, the family, I feel like the soul family, even what I call it, like just, I know for us, we live in an area where there's no family, like biology, I should say, biology family. So we're having
Yeah.
to, beautiful, oh my gosh, relationships and friendships with other families just makes my heart so friggin' happy. Like the people we've connected with and the love. But I know we had to be open to build that. Like it doesn't just come as a victim. It
Yeah.
comes because we're open to it and we're like, and we're willing to be a part of it. And it reminds me, like my mom lives in a assisted living.
Hmm.
Oh, I don't know. A lot of those people, they don't live long. I know why. Yeah, you're living with others, but you're kind of living alone. And it's kind of intense. And I could see, like, I love that you shared about, yeah, where do people live the longest and what is that about? Like, but there is something about social, even though I was a hermit, introverted empath, I still need connection with people and love. And now it feels so strong. Like in our community, when we had our son and we started doing meal trains for people I didn't even know. And I
Hmm.
said, I'll just drop it out your front door. You'll be good. And it was so beautiful. And then people I did know, and I was like, can we come together? Even like that makes my heart happy. Like to come together with each other in different ways when we have the capacity to. And
Yeah.
I understand that some people don't have that capacity. Like, but
Sure.
I actually envision, the new earth world being in smaller communities where we take care of each other.
Hmm.
Like this
Hmm.
person, let's say their kid has cancer. We're all coming in and taking care of that person together.
Hmm.
Or let's say there's someone who's mentally ill and they have no capacity to not be that, or their special needs. Well, we're going to all come in and take care of them financially, food wise,
Hmm.
sharing responsibility. To me, that feels like new humanity coming together instead of these systems of like government systems, especially. I won't go deep into that, but like just taking
Right.
money and you don't know where the money goes and you're like, where is it going? And these people are still sick and you're like, you're giving those sick people the money. They don't look better. So I'm a big proponent
Yeah.
in,
Don't get me
yeah,
started. Yeah.
yeah, I know. I don't
Yeah.
want to get started.
Yeah.
We'll do a whole other
Right.
episode on that one.
Yeah. Yeah. Could talk about days on all of that fun
Yeah.
stuff for sure.
But yeah,
Yeah.
the tribe's mentality just coming together, loving and beautiful. And I've got to really experience that as a mother and having children. And I feel so much more safe and grounded in my being. I want to offer that to others, if it feels
Yeah.
synergistic, right? It's not about
Yeah.
me. This is where I have to watch. It's not about me taking care of the wounded. I almost feel like I'm replacing my mom. Like I'm not trying to replace her because there was a lot involved in me taking care of her before she died, like a lot of emotional, spiritual, psychic energy. And
Hmm.
I have to remind myself that, yeah. And so just, yeah, being of service to others because we can and because it feels good and it doesn't take anything really from us. It's just love.
Yeah. Just coming from a place of compassion. I
Hmm.
mean, that's what I love about the Dalai Lama. That's what he preaches,
Mm,
compassion. Well, Buddhism in general, that's my favorite part of Buddhism. I'm
mm,
not a Buddhist, but um, I like to look at all religions and what their messages are. And that's my favorite message from Buddhism is just coming from a place of compassion. And when I have to continuously come back to a place of compassion. And when I do, the world just opens up
doesn't
and
it? Yes. I love that.
it doesn't feel as well. I believe that this realm that we're in, this is very esoteric. I'm going to go to the esoteric
Hmm.
side for a second, but I feel like the realm that we're living in is a realm of struggle.
Mm,
um but when you come into compassion and just enter the world in that way or be present in the world in that way, um the struggle seems to dissipate.
So I love that I love that, like, I almost feel like anthropological, esoteric, like that energy, that vibe. It's just, it makes sense. And I want you to just share any final words and also ways that others can connect with your work, like website or any, social media, whatever you have.
Yeah, I have all my work is up on my website, which is zoeweston.com. There's classes and books and ways to connect with me. I am on Twitter. If you want to connect with me there, it's just at my name, ZOEWESTON. And yeah, I do have my theory, 5 Steps to World Peace, if anyone's interested in reading a little bit more about that. And yeah, I do have a Facebook page. I'm not really on there too much. I'm on Instagram, but again, I'm not really on there very much. So right now, Twitter's the best place. I hang out there sometimes and look at all the fun stuff on there.
Wonderful.
But yeah, it's been great chatting with you. So
Yeah,
many
thank you
interesting
for coming
topics to
on.
yeah, you're welcome. But yeah, thank you so much.
Absolutely. It was wonderful having you. And so I want to thank everybody for joining episode 174, September 15th, 2023, Birthing Babies into World Peace, an Anthropological and Esoteric View. Thank you for joining Spirit Baby Radio with your host, me, Kelly. And please join my newsletter for Spirit Baby 101 video on tips and practices. Order my book, It's a Journal, Sacred Communication, a Spirit Baby Journal, and Cards for Your Healing Journey, Spirit Baby Oracle Cards, Soul Answers from Spirit Baby. To learn more about my services in supporting people all around the world in private one-on-one sessions, online classes, programs, and private VIP retreats, you can reach me at kellyanmeehan.com or spiritbabymedium.com, as well as on Instagram at spiritbabymedium, and email is spiritbabymedium@gmail.com. Remember to always listen to your heart communication, and your spirit child says hello. Thank you for joining.